I'd like to move very promptly now to India and the story that's going to be given to us by Manfred Haebig. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Most of us, most of you are researchers. I'm not. I'm a practitioner, and allow me a little bit more colorful approach. As you can see, this elephant is not a tiger. And you have already guessed, I'm talking about India. Well, why do I use the singular? Shouldn't I use the plural? And maybe that goes without words. Well, whether it's two, three, or many Indias, it's more than one. It's more than one, and it's a very heterogeneous country. Actually, I have never seen something more heterogeneous than India. And don't try ever to compare it with one European country. I mean, only if you take the whole European Union, you get a little bit closer to understanding what it means. And it is either drifting apart in this process of development, or it's as far apart as ever. So there's light. We had the reforms at the beginning of the 90s. We have high growth rates. We have a booming IT sector, which is contributing 30% to exports, $60 billion, 2.2 million jobs. But then, where are the other 498 million coming from? You have special economic zones that make up 22% of the exports. You have a growing presence on the world market. You have a growing middle class, good market for us. You have 15 times more phone subscribers than taxpayers. You have a growing political cloud of the country. And if you compare it with the neighbors, it's a haven of stability in South Asia. So there's light. And there's shadow also. Since the 1990s, not much has happened in terms of reforms. It's gradualism. 2/3 still live on less than $2 a day. 1/3 still lives on less than $1.25 a day. 8 Indian states have more poor than all African states together. It's 66 or 67 of 88 in the Global Hunger Index of IFPRI. There's no basic services for more than 22% of the rural population. 40% of the entrants into the labor market are illiterate. And the Indian states, if you take them individually, are among the best and the worst in the developing world. Just look at this. Orissa is somewhere between Chad and Congo. If you take the poverty figures, India average something between Togo and Ghana. Punjab, Assam come very close to Turkey and Peru. So there is no one India. It's a very heterogeneous country. And as a total, it's coming very close to you in Brazil in terms of Gini, rather not very equal in distribution. There's a big employment and income gap. If you look at the contribution of the different sectors to the national wealth, you would expect agriculture, that's the green line, to go down. You would have probably expected manufacturing, that's the pink one, to be much higher. Actually, we have a lot of jobless growth in the industrial sector, especially in the formal industrial sector. And there is, everybody knows that, there's quite some contribution from the service sector. Now compare it with this one. This is the employment figures. And look at the agricultural figure from 1999 to 2005. It has grown more in employment than manufacturing. Somehow, we are parking a lot of young people in a rather unproductive agricultural sector. We have a huge demographic pressure. We have to find jobs and employment for 500 million people in the next 10, 15 years. That's the European Union, more or less. So far, the growth in industry was basically jobless. We have an informal sector that is bigger than 93%. We have a skill development system that is bad in quality and completely insufficient in numbers. Every year, we need 15 million seating capacity, if we call it like in India, and we have 2 or 3 million. So most get into the system without any skill development. And the big question in the Indian development is, how many people can you park in agriculture and for how long before you run into trouble? And the trouble is already there. It's called Naxalite movement, and it's growing. It's a sort of an early stage of what happened in Colombia in South America. So there's growing discontent of not being part of this whole growth, and that is the point of decision of the whole development model. Is it a mission impossible to turn this around? My argument would be no, it's not a mission impossible if 2 things happen. One, there must be a real industrial revolution that is inclusive in job creation. And 2, you would need an educational and skill development revolution that brings many, if not most, of the young people onto a platform that they can take part in this system. And that, again, would mean you need something like economic reform 2.0. The 1990s reform was on the output markets. What has not been reformed and what is really bottleneck to growth at the moment is the input markets, that is the markets for labor, for land, for power. Say, for example, 70% of all the big investments when it comes to the use of land are stalled because of problems and conflicts about land acquisition. So there's a huge work to be done in freeing the input markets in an inclusive way. And the second condition is a public sector reform in a very federal setting that deals both with governance issues and with delivery systems, effectiveness and efficiency, which at the moment is far from optimal. Thank you.